Hello and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And the first round is in the books. The field has narrowed, and now we have 32 teams left in March Madness. So you know how we do game by game, round by round. We're going to give you our second round predictions. Ready? Buckle in. Let's go. Tim, you ready to predict some March Madness games?
Let's run it. Another one down.
But first, let's recap how we did in the first round. Tim, you killed it. You crushed it, man. 25-7 for a first round record. How about that? That's really good. And hey, I'm right behind you. I'm 3 games back at 22-10. Let's see if I can catch you or if you just keep building your lead on me. But regardless, let's start with these second round games, starting with Alabama and Maryland. Alabama absolutely crushed Corpus Christi 96-75. I mean, Alabama was absolutely inevitable in that game. And then Maryland won a nail biter against West Virginia 67-65, where West Virginia, they essentially just shot themselves in the foot. I mean, props to Maryland for making 100%. The adjustments, but West Virginia just beat themselves. And in this game, Alabama's going to continue to roll. I'm still not a Maryland believer. Give me the Tide.
Well, yeah, I mean, Maryland has no way to defend Alabama, in my opinion. I don't think they have any of the guys to match up with. You talk about, size and shooting of Brandon Miller and the rest of the guys that they have that make up that dynamic offense. Maryland can't stop that. Roll Tide.
Next game we have is San Diego State and Furman. Furman. They beat. You did. You called it. They beat Virginia 68-67.
Talk about a way to win that game, though.
I mean,
that should never have happened.
Just never. Virginia held serve the whole time, and then a late steal and a late 3 with 2 seconds left was the dagger.
Time out.
No, they would
regardless,
never.
We're talking about the next round.
Exactly. And Furman is moving on, and Virginia adds another first round loss to their collection of growing disappointments. And San Diego State, they played College of Charleston, and their defense came to play down the stretch. The one thing they just need to do is cut down on the turnovers. San Diego State turned the ball over a lot. That is going to be their undoing, but I like the good defense. I like the all-around play of San Diego State to beat Furman in the second round. They just need to make the adjustments.
You know I got to roll with my Paladins, baby.
And I can't blame you.
Based on what I saw, I mean, you talk about, a little bit of a blueprint in terms of the type of team that they just beat in Virginia. In my opinion, San Diego State is just a worse version of Virginia. A good defense and an offense that struggles to score a little bit. I see Furman, they have those runs in them. Virginia had them on the ropes, down like 8, 10, 12 points there in the second half. And all it takes is one run, a couple of 3-point shots and a couple of stops, and they're right back in that game. I think Furman can take this one, and I have them moving on to the Sweet 16.
Furman definitely has the dynamic shot makers to make it happen. Next game we have is Creighton versus Baylor. Creighton beat NC State 72-63. It was a fairly textbook Creighton win. They didn't blow them out, but they definitely got the job done. And Baylor, on the other hand, took down UC Santa Barbara.
It was tight there for a bit.
It was tight in the first half, and then they absolutely dominated in the second half. When you have LJ Cryer just said, "You know what? Give me the basketball. Let me go to work.
I'll just do it myself."
And he just essentially beat the Gauchos by themselves. But for me, Baylor, they didn't look great in the first half, and I think that's more of the Baylor defense that came to play. When their offense gets hot, that's how they roll. But Creighton is a far better team than UC Santa Barbara, and if UC Santa Barbara gave them problems for a little bit, I think Creighton is going to roll all over them. In my original brackets, this is the matchup that I had. I'm going to stick with Creighton.
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think if Baylor starts out playing like that, and, obviously against UC Santa Barbara, they didn't necessarily dig themselves in a hole. It was just, really neck and neck there for a while. You can't play it. You can't start out like that against a team like Creighton. I mean, Ryan Kalkbrenner had almost 30 in that game.
Ryan Kalkbrenner is a unicorn. He's awesome.
Yeah. I don't think that Baylor can have a half of basketball like that and still beat Creighton. And for that reason, I got Blue Jays moving on as well.
Next game we have is Mizzou and Princeton. Mizzou beat Utah State as an underdog, 76-65. It was a very close game until Kobe Brown and Demoy Hodge caught fire. And you know,
They just lit
Demoy
it up
they
there.
shoot, Demoy they score, Demoy they score, Demoy they win. You know the old saying. And Princeton, on the other hand, you have to give the boys some credit. Them
They
Ivy League
shut
boys
down
know
Zona.
ball. They shut them down 59-55. And many people, including myself, counted Princeton out. And I owe them a
We
very
all do.
sincere apology. Princeton, I apologize. I didn't
They
think you
they
could do
busted
it.
a large number of millions of brackets.
Well, I was already pouring kerosene on my bracket as is. That just gave me more excuse to just light it on fire. But in this game, Mizzou is a boomer bust team. If they get hot, they can run away with it. But if
Yep.
not, it can be really bad. I'm going to take the upset here. Historically, every 15 seed that is advanced to the Sweet 16 has beaten a 7 seed. Florida Gulf Coast beat a 7 seed. Oral Roberts defeated a 7 seed. St. Peter's defeated a 7 seed. The pattern's going to continue. I didn't expect Princeton to do it in the first round, so I got him in the second round. Don't let me down, Princeton.
You know, I'm in the same boat as you, but for the opposite team. I did not believe in Missouri in the first round. I thought
No, you
that
did not.
their defense would come back to bite them,
You took
and
the favorites.
they shut down Utah State when they needed to. And obviously we talk about Missouri's ability to steal the ball with Demoy Hodge and all those guys. You know, the pressure they put on. I think that they're going to be able to, speed up or make Princeton a bit more uncomfortable than Arizona's style of play. And I think that they'll force Princeton to play their style of game. For that reason, that I've got Missouri moving on.
You know, Tim, we're disagreeing a lot early, and I'm either going to dig
It could
myself into
go
a bigger hole or
it
I'm
could
going to
go
catch some
very well for
games.
you, or you are almost done for.
That is a-okay with me. That's why we play the game. The next
You
game we
know,
have to cover is Houston and Auburn. And Houston, what happened? That would have been the 116 story if a certain train themed team didn't absolutely break everybody's heart. More on that later. Without Marcus Sasser, when he re-injured himself, Houston looked really, really shaky. They should have won by a lot more against a Northern Kentucky squad that by all means did not play well. And on the other side, this was pretty much with Auburn and Iowa how we thought the game was going to go. Auburn used the home court advantage and held control of the lead for pretty much the whole game and put them away. But, oh boy, this Houston team, really shaky. I gotta go with them. I gotta feel that this Houston team, they were number one in the country. They're one of the top overall seeds. That there has to be some adjustment made because their coach was livid, absolutely
oh yeah,
livid in that game.
as he
And
should be.
if you think that the Houston Cougars are not going to get a fat ass boot up their butt, you are sorely mistaken. I think they're going to make the adjustments and win.
You know, we are really, really enjoying disagreeing today because from the get-go, before everything even started, my pick was that Auburn was going to advance here and that they were going to, do what they need, scrap it out to be able to upset Houston. And I still hold true to that based on what I saw out of these first round
Ah,
matchups.
jeez.
I think Auburn is, they showed in that Iowa game that obviously Iowa's defense is not very good, but they showed that they can score the ball at a pretty high level, and that they can get control of lead and keep it. On the other hand, with Houston, I think that losing Marcus Sasser, if he does not play in this next game, is
That's
a
going to be
much
the
bigger
big
loss.
one.
It's gonna be a much bigger loss than some people might think. Oh well, they still have like a ton of other guys. He's a really important piece to that
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
And you saw that in the loss to Memphis in their conference championship. But I think that Auburn's got what it takes. Roll on.
Oh dear. War Eagle, I guess.
You
The next
know,
the next matchup we have is Miami and Indiana. And oh boy, this one pains me because these are two teams that I really like. Miami, they beat Drake. Norchad Omier played, and what do you know? It took a little bit of comeback work, but they were
yeah,
able to pull
it was shaky
through.
there for a bit.
That's okay. But we knew Drake wasn't going to make it easy on him. All that
Nope,
matters
absolutely not.
is the U took home the W. And on the other side, Oh boy, was I wrong about Indiana. Trace Jackson Davis' ability to take
He
over
does his
games
thing.
is truly game changing. And that is not
No kidding.
hyperbole. He changed the game. When he got going, Kent State didn't have an answer, which I'm repping the U right now. They're my favorite team outside of Butler. But who's gonna guard TJD? Norchad Omier is a big, mainly because Miami's just an incredibly guard heavy team. And I don't believe they're going to run circles around Indiana. My Miami path to the Final Four was very contingent on Indiana losing this game because it is a matchup
You thought you
nightmare.
matched up a lot better against Drake than against Indiana. I get it.
Hoosiers. God, I don't
That's
like
tough for
that.
you.
I
Yeah,
don't
that's
like
real tough
that.
for you. And
Nope,
this
I
is
don't like
one
that.
and this is one where I do actually have to agree with you. Obviously I love Miami's guards. They still played particularly well. In this game between Indiana and Kent State, not only did TJD step up big, but Race Thompson finally had, a reemergence game of putting up some great numbers. If he starts playing well again, you get Hood Schifino back on track. There's just too many scoring options for this Indiana team, for Miami to be able to contain them. So, as much as it pains you, it probably pains me even more to say that I think that the Hoosiers will move on to the Sweet 16.
Oh God, both of our hearts. That just
Not in a good place.
so painful. The
Pain,
next matchup we
pain and
have
suffering.
is Pittsburgh and Xavier. Pitt did not win. Iowa State put up an all-time
That was the most
stinker.
that was the
Probably
most
the most
painful game.
pathetic performance I've ever seen from a tournament team. Pittsburgh won 59-41. There are
I
40
can't believe
minutes in a
Iowa State
college
ended up with
basketball game.
41.
Iowa State basically took a revolver, shot themselves in one foot, shot themselves in the other foot, and tried to walk and run a marathon. And it just didn't work. All Pitt needed to do, it seemed like, was show up. And that is just how bad that Iowa State played. On the other side, Xavier beat Kennesaw State 72-67.
That one
And
got real sticky there for a bit.
yes, it did. I was nervous for a second. And as a Butler guy, you know how much I hate Xavier, but this is pretty much the Kennesaw State collapse. Xavier took advantage of the Owls scoring drought and brought themselves right back into it. I have Xavier. I still think Pitt's a banged up team. They're missing a good guard. Their center's out. Xavier's a really good team. Even though they had a scare, there's really not much thinking here.
Kennesaw State is a very unique team, so I'm not necessarily surprised that Xavier had a bit of an issue with how to deal with that. I still think that Xavier is a very solid team. I still think that Pitt has shown me nothing to make me like them, because they won that game basically, like you said, by showing up. All they had to do was stand there and waste time, and Iowa State would, at that point it felt like Iowa State was throwing it in Pitt's basket. But yeah, I don't think there's much to convince me that Pitt has a chance with this one, but that's why we play the game. I got Xavier.
Exactly. The next game we have is Penn State and Texas, which should be a way more interesting matchup than the last one we talked about, because when Penn State got going, they couldn't miss. And Andrew Funk couldn't miss.
Oh my goodness.
Andrew Funk channeled.
Both of these teams can shoot the ball, like, seriously.
Oh, this is going to be an awesome matchup because Andrew Funk essentially turned into Jimmer for that. And Penn State shot 59% from three. It is hard to beat that good of shooting. And Texas, 81 points against Colgate. Anytime you break 80, that's a darn good offense too. I go back and forth on this matchup. Penn State and Micah Shrewsbury. God, I love that team. God, a former Butler assistant. But
they're
Texas,
also a very unique team to try to guard.
But Texas might be one of the best teams in the country, one of the most overall rounded teams in the country.
Talk about a story too for them to be playing this well at this point.
These guys are grown.
We've talked about them.
These guys have the experience. They earn their stripes. I'm going with the same logic. Give me Texas.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to pick against them.
It's so tough because Texas, obviously, I went on the long shot and tried to pick against them in the first round, but they really have, just kept up with the same momentum that they ended the conference tournaments with.
You could pick Colgate in the first round, but after that performance, is there really any doubt?
Yeah, I mean, Texas is playing so well. I think Penn State will 100% give them a fight because of, like I said, they are a very unique team to guard. If you get Jalen Pickett going, it's very hard to guard him because not only can he shoot on the outside, but if you put a guy that's a little bit smaller on him, he will just back you down. Not only back you down, but if you try to help, that's where the kick out threes come. But right now, Texas is scoring from all over the court. They're shooting the 3-point shot like nobody's business. Obviously, both of these teams are, but I think Texas probably has the ability to score in more of a multitude of ways than Penn State can. And if Penn State doesn't shoot lights out, then it's going to be really hard to keep up with this high-flying Texas team. So I got the Longhorns.
Kansas and Arkansas is the next game we got on the table. Kansas absolutely demolished Howard. It really wasn't much of a contest. And with Arkansas, a 10-point win over Illinois, the must bus keeps rolling in March. When Illinois would crawl back, Arkansas would just kind of jump out ahead. Now, the big question in this one is, will Kansas get Bill Self back? Because in order for a deep tournament run to happen, they need Bill Self.
Your guy. Yeah.
You need Bill Self because Kansas is all the talent in the world, but it's that coaching that really helps and really makes the guys mesh.
I mean, you're always going to have difficult times in the game. You got to have
it's a lot of
your coach, the mastermind behind the whole operation.
It's like a really high quality jigsaw puzzle. You need the guy to put the jigsaw pieces together to make the puzzle whole. I like Kansas in this matchup. I think they're going to beat Arkansas, but God, just get Bill Self back.
Yeah, like you said, that's super, super important for them. And, not only for their case, but for the case of Bill Self himself. I mean, I really hope that he's able to get healthy and back with his team. I know that they desperately want him back as well. But this is going to be another one where I'm sticking to my guns of what I thought at the beginning of the tournament. And I am actually going to stick with the must bus. And I think that they have the ability to do enough. They have all the talent in the world. We have said at the beginning of this year, they had high expectations based off of their tournament run last year. Obviously, they handled Illinois pretty solidly. And I will say for a while there, Kansas Howard was close until Kansas blew it open in like the middle of the second half. But
Tim, find me a 116 that wasn't close at some point this year. Yeah, they all were.
Yeah, but and that's entirely fair. But I think that Arkansas has a shot. And I really think that all they need is the opportunity and that they're going to take this one.
All you really need is love and friendship and putting an orange ball in an orange hoop. But that's neither here nor there. The next matchup we have is St. Mary's and UConn. St. Mary's won a very defensive battle against VCU, and they played the game at their pace. And when you slow it down, VCU struggled. They also dealt with the injury bug a little bit. That doesn't help. But St. Mary's really shut them down. And on the other side, UConn and Iona, it was close for a while because this was the battle of the coaches. Slick Rick didn't make it easy on him until Adama Sanogo entered takeover mode, and then that game was over. UConn,
they blew it open.
Blew that game wide open, was exactly the team we thought they would be. And they're going to keep the momentum rolling against St. Mary's. Who's going to stop Adama Sanogo down low? I'm not sure, but it's not going to be St. Mary's.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the fact of, UConn as a 4 seed is arguably one of the best 4 seeds in terms of, ceiling when they're playing their best basketball. And in that second half, they showed flashes of what made them one of the top teams in the country in the first half of the season. And I think that they're going to continue to build on that. You're right. I don't think that St. Mary's has the guys to defend UConn in the way and the style that they play. So as much as I like St. Mary's and I think that they put up a very solid performance to be able to take down VCU, I got UConn moving on here as well.
Next matchup we have is TCU and Gonzaga. TCU beat Arizona State 72-70, which that was just a fun game at the end. Arizona State had it in hand, and then it was just a hard sell. But Jacoby Coles, one shining moment, the Butler transfer, me heart, all of Butler just singing their praises, just so happy that Jacoby Coles gets his moment in the sun, took on the big minutes when Eddie Lampkin left and did the goddamn thing. And we are so happy for him. But on the other side, face a Gonzaga team that's still super duper red hot. They were scared for a little bit, but they were able to regain
They could
themselves
jump there a bit in the first half.
and pull away. Okay, but that's a common theme in the first round. A lot of the bigger teams got jumped, and then they kind of woke up and they're like, oh yeah, we're still really, really good. So, I mean, it's hard to stop Gonzaga when they're rolling. So I think they're going to keep on rolling right into the Sweet 16.
I agree. Gonzaga has that ceiling that I don't think that TCU can match up with. In terms of, Drew Timme didn't even have like, the standout performance that he can have. And I think that TCU is going to struggle to defend all of the ways that Gonzaga can score. So, I think as a 3 seed rather than as, some of the 1 seeds that we've seen them in the past when Gonzaga has played super, super well in the regular season, I think they're more dangerous as a 3 seed. I've got them moving on.
Sometimes it's the teams that you expect to do the least damage that ends up making a run. Could this be the year? Who knows? But the next matchup we got is Northwestern and UCLA. Northwestern rode the strengths of Boo Buie and their guards to a solid victory over Boise State, an 8-point win. And UCLA, wow, they looked awesome. It wasn't even close. I understand that UNC Asheville and Drew Pember were an popular upset pick, but UCLA shut that down right away. When you're hot, and a performance like that, you gotta imagine that they're going to keep it rolling against Northwestern. As much as I like the scrappy group of Wildcats, I got the Bruins moving on to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, big issue for Northwestern is I just don't know if they can have enough different ways to score. They still rely too much on Boo Buie and Chase Audige.
Don't forget about Bowie Barnheiser.
I will never forgive ESPN for that one. That's such disrespect. But UCLA really proved that they can score the ball a lot better than people may have thought while losing Jalen Clark. And I think that they're going to keep rolling on that crazy momentum that they had. They showed utter domination in the first round. I just don't think the Northwestern is going to have enough to keep up. So I got UCLA as well.
We got 4 more games left. The next one we have to cover is Fairleigh Dickinson against Florida Atlantic. Fairleigh Dickinson, they absolutely stunned Purdue. So much so that we have a whole separate episode breaking down that game. So we're going to skip the summary and leave that to the separate episode. So go watch that. And FAU, that was a classic 8-9 matchup against Memphis that came right down to the wire, very much to the last bucket. And FAU, they just made one more play, made one more basket at the end, and Penny Hardaway threw his water bottle in frustration because, my God, what a game, had all the emotion in the world and was an absolute thriller. That's going to be a fun one for me to go to because me and the boys are actually going to be there in Columbus for that game.
It'll be great.
It's going to be a very fun time. The buck stops here for Fairleigh Dickinson. It was a fun ride, but this is going to be like a more traditional matchup between the two teams. And FAU, they picked up their 32nd win. They find a way to get it done, and that's the sign of a great team. So I'll take the Owls.
I have to agree. I mean, obviously, Fairleigh Dickinson put up one hell of a
Tim?
performance. Yeah.
That's why you think Fairleigh Dickinson's going to lose?
Sure. Yes. Yeah, we'll go with that. But you're right. I do think that, the game script and the style of play doesn't necessarily feed into Fairleigh Dickinson's strength as much as the contrast did with Purdue. And I think that FAU will, have a much more balanced attack and way to score that Purdue lacked there. So as much as Fairleigh Dickinson obviously, made history and all credit in the world to them, but I do believe that FAU will have enough there to, silence them a bit.
Duke and Tennessee is the next game on the table, and I picked Oral Roberts against Duke. My bad. Duke by TKO.
Duke looks really, really good.
Knockout.
And it makes me sad because I thought Duke was done.
And Tennessee, a 3-point win against Louisiana, an absolute scare. They just by the skin of their chinny chin chins, Duke is going to score another knockout.
Duke's just playing way too well right now.
People hate that because we don't want to see Duke back in the national spotlight. But guess what?
They're
It's
here.
parting like the Red Sea for Duke to make another run. Accept it, America.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, let's face it, Duke's just playing really well right now. And I think you especially in terms of, offense and the ability to score, we know that Tennessee has a fantastic defense, but um, I think Duke just has too much in terms of that offensive intensity, the ability to score. And not only, I mean, they also held an Oral Roberts team that usually scores the ball really, 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 really well, and they held them in check all game.
And
So
all
I've got the
credit to
Blue
you,
Devils as well.
Tim. You matched up Jeremy Roach with Max Asmus and highlighted that. And you hit the nail right on the head. That was the key matchup.
Yeah.
Max Asmus couldn't get going, and Roach absolutely just went
Jeremy
off.
Roach
So
is a very solid defender, and he did exactly what he needed to do to
you
limit
dog,
Asmus.
you dog. Kentucky and Kansas State is our next second round matchup. Kentucky survived another early March disappointment over Providence, winning by
Finally
8.
got their March Madness win.
Finally got away. And what? Oh my God, they followed the formula, Tim. Who was their leading rebounder? Oscar Tshiebwe, 25 boards. And who was their leading scorer? The former Redbird himself, Antonio Reeves, 22 points. Crazy what happens when you get those two guys clicking because they're so talented
You get the
individually.
right stuff rolling, and I mean, it's hard to stop.
Yeah, and on the other side, Kansas State, there really wasn't much going against Montana State. I mean, it was about the matchup that we expected, but Jerome Tang in his first year, he's not quite ready to take that next step. Calipari, if they follow the formula, which I believe they will because they saw the success against Providence, that matchup, that guard big, dichotomy that they run with, they're going to win. You go with the experience, you go with the talent, and Kansas State isn't ready yet. One more year. They're going to get there.
Yeah,
Not yet.
I mean, I get it. Kansas State, obviously, they certainly don't have that, coaching experience that you talk about that Coach K has on
Coach C.
Coach Calipari. Coach Calipari obviously has been here before, and he is
well, so is Coach K, but like not anymore.
Yeah, he's enjoying his retired commercial life. But I really
we'll
like
get there
Keontae
one day,
Johnson.
Tim.
I really like Keontae Johnson, and I love the different scoring options that Kansas State has. Obviously, I know Kentucky is a very hard team to match up with if they have the right pieces rolling, but I got to stick with Kansas State. I think there's a reason why they've made it to this point and won so many games during the season. I think that they can do enough to keep this one going.
They also lost to Butler, but that's neither here nor there. We'll wrap it up with our final second round matchup, Michigan State and Marquette. March is Tom Izzo's month for a reason. Michigan State collected a 10-point win against USC. You got to respect the Spartans. And on the other side, Marquette, they blew the doors right off of Vermont.
Oh, is that about the Cannoneers?
The Catamounts, thank you very much.
Close enough.
But lightning never strikes twice, Tim. I mean, I was wrong. All right, I was incorrect. We can always try our best. But the thing about that is Vermont tried to run with Marquette, and you don't run with Marquette because even without Tyler Kolek,
you cannot beat Marquette at their own game.
Exactly. Shaka Smart is too good of a coach. The horses on Marquette are too big, fast, strong, powerful. And that's why they're able to collect a victory. And I think that's why they're going to be able to collect another victory in Columbus. That's the second game in the package, other than like FDU and FAU. The second game will be Michigan State and Marquette. What Michigan State does well is run the floor, shoots a lot of threes. And what does Marquette do really well? That is exactly Marquette's bread and butter. So I acquiesce. Fine. Pick Marquette. But I don't have to be happy about it.
Yeah, the main issue that I see in this game is Marquette has too many players that can blow a game open. You talk about Tyler Kolek at any opportunity, Big East Player of the Year. Like, we know who he is. We know how good he can be. Obviously, he had that, thumb injury during the game there that, he kept playing through and whatnot. And I think he will be fine moving forward.
Tyler Kolek goes down. Cam Jones steps right up. 18 consecutive points.
You talk about Joplin off the bench. he can knock a three in anybody's face. Prosper, you put him in a corner, he'll throw one up in front
Olivier
of somebody
Maxence
else's.
Prosper.
Yes, and Oso Ighodaro. Obviously, we know that
Oso's a big grab boards left and right. You're just
he played
listing
really well too.
guys that
Yeah.
can just beat you in so many different ways, which
And I
is
don't know
all
if
the more
Michigan State has
reason
enough different ways to stop it. So I've got Marquette
you're
too.
also going to pick Marquette. But that is all we got. That's going to wrap up our second round predictions. It's been a wild tournament so far.
This second round is going to do a lot to our records because we have a lot of different games in this one.
Yes, it will. And it will further prove that we don't know a damn thing about college basketball. But if you haven't watched, we know ball, but like we don't really know ball. But does anybody really know ball? No, nobody knows ball. But that's neither here nor there. If you didn't watch our first round predictions, go watch that to see how we did there. Tim, we recapped Purdue and Fairleigh Dickinson, the absolute stunner that game was. Yeah, you got to stop doing this. We'll have NFL content. We got all other stuff around the channel. So if you like our stuff, go check that out. But if you want more from us, like and subscribe. And until next time, we out.